Hi, so I am Emery Smith from Martha O'Brien Center, and I want to talk to you about how to structure your essay. So, when writing an essay for the HiSET, I recommend writing 5 paragraphs, but I only have 4 steps. So, the 4 steps are: 1, choose one position or stance on the topic; 2, explain 2 reasons why you're right. This is going to end up being 2 paragraphs. 3, tell me why others are wrong; and 4, review and recommend a next step. So, option 1, there are 2 articles on the HiSET. There's going to be one for a point of view and one that's against or the opposing point of view. In order to write your essay, you need to choose one position, and that means reading these couple of articles, then deciding which one you agree with, which one has the better evidence, which one maybe is just easier to write about. And you don't have to have a really strong conviction, but you should write as if you do have a very strong position or stance. I don't recommend coming across as wishy-washy or starting with one point of view and then ending with another point of view. Just make sure whatever stance you decide to take for or against the given topic, stick with it, and you're pretty much guaranteed to succeed. So decide which one you agree with, whether you're for or against. So here's an example. Here's an essay on tattoos and why tattoos are great. Take a moment, pause, and read this essay. Okay, great. So now that you've taken a second to pause and to read this essay, and if you didn't, go ahead and pause now and read it, then you can see that there are some reasons why this author believes that tattoos are great. In the second paragraph, this author talks about it being a form of expressing yourself. In the third paragraph, it talks about commemorating a person or event. In the fourth, it talks about how it's okay to have a tattoo in the workplace. And in the fifth, it talks about how getting tattoos is safe. So all of these are reasons that are supporting the main idea that tattoos are good. So that's the kind of thing that you want to do when you write your essay. So keeping track of kind of their arguments might help you come up with your own arguments, or you can even cite them and use their arguments in your own essay. So that's the essay for. Now there's an article against. It says, think before you ink. So once again, take a moment, pause, and read this article. Okay, so what are some of the reasons you spot about why it says tattoos are not a good idea? It might be that employers don't like tattoos. It could also be the health risks of getting a tattoo, such as in paragraph 3. Or it could be in paragraph 4 that you might regret getting a tattoo, and it gives the example of Johnny Depp. So that's some examples of how this author is using reasons to support their stance or their position. It's a persuasive article because it's trying to persuade you to believe what they believe. Now, you're going to write a persuasive essay where you can use some of these ideas and some of your own ideas and experiences to support your position on this topic. So the first thing you do is you decide what's your position, what's your stance. Do you agree that tattoos are good, or do you disagree and think tattoos are not a good thing? Even if you don't have a very strong opinion on this topic, make a solid stance in your essay. I recommend that you start your essay with the words, I believe. I believe that, and then whatever your stance is, whether it's for or against tattoos, state it as clearly and directly as possible. It's not cool to have a very, I guess, ambiguous or unclear stance. You actually want to have a very clear idea of what your stance is and where you're going and what evidence you're using to support it. So here's an example. It's not very fancy wording or anything, but it gets the job done. It says, I believe that people who want them should get tattoos. Straight forward and easy. I believe that, and it's a position for tattoos. Now that I have my position, I'm going to go on to part 2, where I think of 2 reasons why I believe that people should get tattoos. Or if you're on the opposing side, 2 reasons why you believe that people should not get tattoos. These reasons should be simple, one phrase statements. You're going to have time to explain them later, so don't make them overly complicated, but do make sure that each reason is distinct enough, different enough from the other, that you have 2 paragraphs worth of stuff to say about these things. So first, I'm going to add them onto my I believe statement to say, I believe because reason 1 and reason 2. Here's an example. I believe that people who want tattoos should get them because tattoos are an important form of self-expression and are now much more widely accepted in the workplace. So which is my reason 1? Right there. Reason 1 is that tattoos are an important form of self-expression. I'll explain that more later. But right now, this is just introduction. I'm just introducing the idea. And second, they're now much more widely accepted in the workplace. That's my second main reason, which I will explain in detail in the second body paragraph. So now explain each of these reasons in its own body paragraph. You'll start your first body paragraph by reviewing or restating your first reason. You might even be able to get away with stating it in almost the exact same words. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. What you want is to be very clear and organized. Then explain your reason using evidence from the passage or examples from your own life. So here's an example. First, tattoos are an important form of self-expression for many people. For example, some of my friends have their favorite religious text, their sports team, or the name of a deceased loved one. This form of self-expression is unique to the individual, and it should be right to wear their deep-held beliefs, interests, and love on their skin if that is their choice. And yes, I do know that there's a typo there. It says believes, and it should say beliefs with an F instead of a VE. Always remember to proofread, guys. Okay, so notice that at the beginning of the paragraph it says first. This is a good way to introduce your first paragraph. Make sure that you always have a comma after first. Then I restate my reason that tattoos are an important form of self-expression. And then in this example, am I supporting that reason using evidence from the passage or an example from my own life? The answer is an example from my own life. And I do this by using the words for example. For example, comma, and on I go. Let's take a look at body paragraph 2. Body paragraph 2, we'll review your second reason and explain that reason once again using evidence from the text or examples from your own life. If in the first paragraph I use examples from my own life, in the second one I'll probably try to use evidence from the text, just to kind of be a little bit different and create some variety. So my second reason is the same one that I said in the introduction. Nothing new here, no surprises. It says second, or you could also use the word additionally, tattoos are much more accepted in the modern workplace. According to the passage Tattoos, the Ultimate Expression, employers look at more at qualifications than appearance when hiring. It is more important in the modern workplace to be good at what you do than it is to look a certain way while doing it. So this gives an example from the passage. The evidence from the text is referred to when it says according to the passage. This is a good phrase to use. I also recommend using this phrase when you're paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means summing up what the passage said or the main idea rather than a direct quote. A direct quote would mean saying what the passage said word for word, and that needs to be in quotation marks. If it's not in quotation marks, then it's called plagiarism because you're copying somebody's work without giving it credit. Even so, because I'm taking this idea directly from the passage, I'm giving credit where credit is due. and just letting them know, hey, this is according to the passage. On the HiSET test, this is actually to your advantage as well, because then it shows that you read the passage, you understood it, and now you're using that information in your own argument. That's a very mature way to think and to write, and they'll really like it. Okay, now it's on to body paragraph 3. Body paragraph 3 is where you get to talk about the opposing point of view. I said here, tell me why others are wrong. Well, it's not just being mean. Really, you want to show that you can understand what the opposing position is and still be able to explain why you hold the position you hold. So I often start with, other people believe that. Then I summarize in a few words what the opposing argument would be. And then I explain why that belief is incorrect or why I think differently. Here's an example. Other people believe that those who get tattoos will regret it later in life. However, many people who get tattoos are no longer relevant to them as a reminder. Excuse me. However, many people who get tattoos that are no longer relevant view them as a reminder of who they were. Just because circumstances change does not mean someone needs to regret their tattoo. So I start with other people believe to introduce the opposing position, and then I use the phrase however, and I put a colon right before that because it's kind of coming right off of that last idea, not introducing a new sentence, and then a comma always after however. So however transitions to my point of view. And then I talk about how many people who get tattoos are no longer relevant to them, still view them as a reminder of who they were. So I'm kind of introducing an opposing argument that people won't like their tattoos anymore. And then I'm introducing my counter argument, why I think that that's wrong. Once again, this is a much more mature way to write, and they will really appreciate it on the HiSET. This should be your third body paragraph. Your conclusion, or fifth paragraph, is when you review what you've written so far, and then you can put some next steps. We also call this the conclusion, and I always start with in conclusion. So review your positions and reasons, and then recommend a next step. So here's an example. In conclusion, I believe that people who like tattoos should get them. They are a good way to express yourself, and employers are becoming more tolerant of them in the professional environment. We can reduce stigma against tattooed individuals by continuing to hire qualified professionals with visible tattoos. Maybe someday our judgment of someone's ability will go beyond skin deep. So I introduced it with in conclusion, and then I reviewed my first reason and my second reason. Notice that although these reasons are things I've stated before, I say them in a slightly different way than I have before, such as employers are becoming more tolerant of them in the professional environment. Before I used the phrase workplace, and now I'm using the phrase professional environment. I'm talking about the same thing, but I'm varying the word choice just to create a little bit more mature writing style. And then I just go on to introduce the next step, that maybe we could hire people with tattoos and that would reduce the stigma. So that's my example of how to structure an essay for the HiSET. It's not too hard. Start with an I believe statement and 2 reasons, then talk about an opposing view, review, and next step.